Hello, everybody. I'm Charlie from the OPA team. I'm joined today by Johan, who's also an OPA maintainer, who's been doing some work on the OPA roadmap for the rest of the year. And now that we're in the era of OPA 1.0, there's some interesting things about the Rego language that Johan's lining up, and he's going to talk us through. So, yeah, over to you. Do you want to give us a little overview about the roadmap here?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, as Charlie said, this is the general roadmap for the year, and it starts in Q2 and goes through to Q1 of 2026. Um, we have a couple of performance improvements here that we want to do. We have a bit of updates to the tooling, but what we want to focus on today is primarily the changes to the Rego language, which is probably going to be the thing that you listeners are more interested in, I think.
Yeah, certainly. Like language always gets people talking, and I think also is a great opportunity to make OPA and Rego more usable too. So let's jump right in.
Yeah, so the first item is string interpolation, which is a thing that's fairly common in other languages, and we want to bring that into Rego and OPA. And what string interpolation is basically a means to calculate values directly into a string. So what you need to do in Rego today, if you want to have a string with dynamic information in it, you need to use the sprintf function, and then you write a C style string and you add a list of variable variables that you want to add into that string at runtime. String interpolation, instead, it allows you to declare it directly into the string, which can make it more readable. But it also gives us the ability to make some improvements to Rego where people stumbles a bit today. So one problem that many people face with sprintf is when you evaluate Rego, if you encounter an undefined value, evaluation will stop, which means that in our example here, if one of these variables don't have a value, then we basically will halt evaluation and you won't have a value for the deny rule as a whole, which can cause issues and people run into these issues. So for instance, here in this example output, for the input, we don't have the name field in the input document, which means that we don't get a deny result. Whereas when we introduce this new string interpolation concept into Rego, it will allow us to deal with undefineds in a new way that isn't breaking for existing policies. So here we can basically say that if we can't calculate that same value, then we will still evaluate the rule. It's just that output value won't end up in the string that we're constructing. So here
Yeah.
instead, in this example, we just don't have Alice as part of the output string.
Yeah, and I suppose like we would have the option when working on this to make it such that the user could control what happens when a value is empty.
Possibly, this is still in the design phase, so it's up to design.
TBD. Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
can see how this
TBD.
helps a lot. Like, I think the example is quite clear, and the example here, someone's trying to make a check on a role being present, and the name is only used to produce a nice error message. So it's kind of surprising that the deny rule doesn't fire due to something which is kind of might actually be unrelated as far as the user's concerned. So yeah, I can see that that's definitely confusing. And the other thing I was thinking about was the three backticks. Like, what was the thinking here? Just something we're expecting people to be familiar with, or is there something else that's at play here?
Yeah, so that's still something that's under design. We wanted to give you an example here, so we picked the backticks. What we want to do is introduce something that's not breaking for current policies, that we don't know what's inside of already existing string definitions.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds good.
Another point we want to introduce is parameterized function calls, which allows you to dynamically compose policies in a different way. So currently, you can only reference a built-in function or a custom-made Rego-defined function through a reference that is known beforehand at compile time. We want to make it possible for you to do this dynamically during evaluation. So in this example, this is not something you can do today. You can't have multiple functions defined with different references, different paths, and make a dynamic selection of which of these functions you want to call. You can do that with rules through dynamic policy composition, but you can't do it with functions, and we just want to add that capability to function calls as well.
Yeah, and I can see how that would be unexpected. I guess, like particularly since we do support it with rules. So yeah, I think it's something that people have probably tried and failed at. So likely a good candidate.
Okay, moving on. Today you can get logical and or functionality through how you compose your rules. Basically, the expressions within a rule body are logically added together, and if you declare multiple rules with the same name, these are logically ORed together. This is a new concept for a lot of developers and a stumbling point. And people are very much used to logical operators like and or. And we want to bring that into Rego, make people comfortable. It also additionally adds a bit of conciseness to the language. You can do very small, concise expressions similar to the or operator, where we are considering adding an alternative operator, which is very similar to the logical or operator. It just doesn't output a Boolean result. It outputs a value that is the first value in the expression that doesn't evaluate to undefined. So in this example, for instance, should the user or role component of the input document be undefined, then the variable role will be assigned the string value guessed instead.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like uh, writing something like that at the moment isn't something that you can really do on one line. So I think defaulting is a pretty common thing that people will be looking to do. But yeah, and also like with the logical or and logical and operator, I think it's yeah nice to give people that option of writing those expressions on a single line, and you can imagine how if they're maybe oring or anding between two helper rules, it could be like a good way for people to kind of break down different larger rules without necessarily kind of you imagine it's like, oh, we're going to add an and operator. It's like sort of endless chaining of long sort of 20 ands. It's kind of wasn't really what we're going for, but yeah, like we've got the linter to help people with that. So yeah, I can imagine this being something that does make it a bit more accessible.
Yeah, and I think the largest thing about primarily the and or operators is familiarity. People know what these entail, what the output is, and they expect them to be in any programming language they're using. So we're just bringing Rego a bit closer to the average developer, which is a good
Yeah,
thing. Moving on within the same category is arbitrary not locations. What do I mean by that? Basically, today, the not keyword is a way for you to say that I expect this variable to either be false or to not have an assigned value, to be undefined. Uh, we are currently a bit limited in where you can do or use this not keyword, and we just want to make behavior a bit more expected. So we want to add uh, places where you can use the not keyword. So today you can't use it together with the every keyword, and you can't add it to arguments to a function and stuff like that. So we just want to where you expect not to work, it should work. That's the idea.
yeah. No, I think it's an important one as well. Like, it's often people are usually trying to use not, and it's create issues in support queries and things. So like, yeah, I think making not more consistent is a good move.
Great. So here we have three examples. In the first example for too strict, we have a partial rule building an object where the B field won't have a value because this rule won't evaluate to a value, which means that object will for users. And the reason is very hard for people to grasp, and we want to fix this. The contrapositive example of that would be this example where we have an empty object defined and you're allowed to do references to fields in this object, and the type checker has no opinion of that. So two examples of two sides of the same coin where the type checker behaves in unexpected ways. And for readability, we have this example, for instance, where someone is trying to divide the string 10 by the number 2, which isn't allowed, and you get an error message. But there are a couple of issues here. One is you're using the division infix operator, but we're reporting on the div function. And we're reporting on the arguments coming into that function, which doesn't really one-to-one correlate to what the developer actually typed into their editor. Not to mention that we actually have 3 arguments in their report, but there are only 2 arguments going into the expression if you don't think about the output of the expression itself. And here there are things we could do to improve. One such thing would be to take some inspiration from test reporting, where we actually take your expression in the error report and we point to the actual place where the type checker found an issue, and we explicitly tell you, well, we have a string here, we want a number. So hopefully that would be much more understandable for users.
Yeah, I think now we've seen the var values flag for tests. It's kind of natural to want that in more places. It's super helpful. So yeah, to have a little pointer exactly to where the issue is makes a big difference. But yeah, like the message is confusing either way. Where people aren't aware of the internal function that they're using and the kind of the meaning of those 3 question marks. And yeah, like I guess it makes sense to us, but it's not a particularly friendly error message for quite a simple error, particularly given you get the same error for variables. It's obvious when it's just there as a string literal.
So that would conclude our presentation. The roadmap is publicly available online. It's linked to from the README on the OPA GitHub page. Please have a look at it and let us know what you think.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Johan. Thanks for taking us through. This is very exciting to see. And yeah, like anybody who isn't in the Slack, that's where we hang out and where we talk about these things. So if you've got any thoughts on these, then do stop by the Slack and drop us a message. We'd love to chat to you about it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, have a good one.